Talk of this Keep on the Watch District Convention. Why has this convention been a milestone in theocratic history? And what can we look forward to in the days ahead? We are eager to hear what Brother Jeffrey Jackson from the governing body has to say in the talk, Keep in Expectation, Watching for Jehovah's Day.
Well, it's hard to believe that we've come to the last talk of our convention. I'm sure you'll agree. It just seems like we've only arrived, and now here we are at the end of our convention. It's true. Time goes fast when you're having fun. But this convention truly has emphasized over and over again the need for us to be watchful, not just to be awake, spiritually speaking, but to be watchful in the sense of looking out to see what's happening on the world scene, to know where we are in the stream of time, and to know that the end is near. It's very appropriate that today's theme was taken from the book of Habakkuk. So let's turn there again as a reminder. The theme for today's program, Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 3. And how nicely this reminds us of what we've been discussing over the last couple of days. Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 3. For the vision is yet for the appointed time, and it keeps panting on to the end, and it will not tell a lie, even if it should delay. Yes, from our viewpoint, our imperfect viewpoint, we might think it is delaying. What does it say? Keep in expectation of it, for it will without fail come true. It will not be late. That's very reassuring for us, isn't it? And it points out that we do need to keep on the watch, because that day is coming. There's no doubt whatsoever about it. The only question is whether or not we will be ready when that day occurs. Well, what have been some of the beautiful highlights of this district convention? Well, for a start, before we even arrived here, wasn't it a pleasure to be involved with the distribution of invitations? And certainly by highlighting this year the public talk instead of the theme of the convention, it caught the interest of the public. And it's good for us to know that by the time this series of conventions is completed, why millions upon millions of these invitations will have been distributed. But what about locally here? Have we had any interesting experiences? Well, it's interesting to see how many experiences came in to the offices, and we can't possibly use all of them. But this is just a little sampling to show you how effective your work has been here in this location. One of the witnesses states, while standing in a grocery store line, the cashier, a young man, cheerfully asked the woman in front of the witness family if she was attending the convention. The woman said, "No. What convention?" Well, the sister behind quickly mentioned that they were attending the convention, and the cashier asked how it was going. Well, the sister told him about it and said how many were coming along. And then the woman in front of them asked, what was the convention all about? So here was an opportunity for her to tell this woman as well. Well, our sister invited the cashier to attend the convention for the final 2 days. He told her, and note this, he had received so many invitations that he might just attend. Well, another experience, a sister who lives here in Portland, she was in a local coffee shop, and she noticed a woman who takes the same local bus as she does. So she approached the woman and introduced herself, asked her what she was going to do today. And the woman says, well, she wasn't doing anything special. So our sister invited this woman to the convention. Well, she gladly accepted the invitation. She showed up here on Saturday morning, and she was here with us on Sunday as well. So a good result from offering the invitation. Another experience. A man walked into the administration office on Saturday at lunchtime and asked for some extra copies of the new releases. And so the brothers were able to help him with that. He made the comment that he was very impressed with how nice everyone here is at this convention. So the brothers asked, well, how did he end up coming to the convention? He said he'd read about it in the newspaper. And then, before he left an envelope with a donation. So again, someone was touched by what they saw. Another experience, a brother saw a man walking around the Civic Center with an invitation in hand. So obviously someone who had been invited came along, and they were able to line up a time to have a Bible study with this man. And finally, just with regard to the invitations, on Saturday evening a sister was in line at a food store when the cashier asked the couple in front of her if they were attending the convention. There seems to be a common thread through the theme here. It says they said no, they weren't. But then the cashier says, you know you have to wake up. So they got the point. Well, the sister told the cashier she was attending the convention and she invited him to come today. And he said he was planning to come for the drama. Well, we can see some benefits from the invitation work. And again, if you're here in the audience for the first time, we'd like to give you a special welcome, and we hope you keep on coming back. Now, another way, of course, we've been witnessing is not only by handing out invitations, but by our lapel cards. And you probably have the same experience as my wife and I. We take quite delight in seeing how secretive people are in looking at the card, trying to read it. Well, some have been able to give a good witness because of wearing their lapel cards. Brother and sister were out for dinner on Friday evening, and a woman at a restaurant commented on the badge card, and she said, what's this all about? Keep on the watch. So the brother was able to explain the convention and give one of the tracts, A Peaceful New World, to this person. And she said, yes, that's what we need, peace. And then another woman who saw him give this woman the tract came up and asked for one. They were even able to give a tract to another person there as well. Another experience. A family was eating dinner when a man sitting at the table next to them asked the daughter what church group she belonged to. She said she was one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Well, he said that he'd been getting the Watchtower and the Awake at his home, and he's confident that this is the time of the end. He said it's time to get serious about the Bible, and he wants to have a Bible study. So he said he was also planning to be with us here on Sunday as well. Another experience, on Friday after the session, a brother and his wife stopped at one of the supermarkets here to get a few items. And at the cash register, the clerk noticed their lapel badges and asked how the convention was going. He said he's a Pentecostal, but he appreciates our ministry and wanted to know about the convention. Well, the brother explained to him about the drama. He said that he wouldn't be working Sunday. He'd like to come along, and we have a little PS here. It says both he and an associate attended attended the Sunday morning session. Then another, a brother met his ex-boss who works in Portland. Every year he notices us coming to restaurants with badge cards. It's a bit hard not to notice, isn't it? I noticed a lot ahead of us at the restaurant we were trying to get into. He asked if we were, now I love this one. You sisters, listen to this. He asked if we required that women witnesses needed to be beautiful to be part of the organization. The answer obviously is yes. So the brother was able to explain that, well, because of our clean living, maybe we just dress up well and we give that appearance. And of course, you are all beautiful. Then another experience at a food court at the mall, a sister had a stranger grab her by the arm. And this person had seen the sisters with a badge card on and asked if there was a convention this week. The sister said yes and told her that she'd be welcome to attend if she'd like. The woman then said that she had attended conventions in the past with her grandmother and she'd like to attend another one. She told the sister she was going to call her grandmother and that she would be here on Sunday. Well, we could go on and on. There's more and more here, but sorry, we won't have time to tell these. A lot of these seem to revolve around donut shops. But this is just a small sampling of the impact that we've had here on the community, either by the invitations that have been given and then having new ones come along, or by just simply wearing our badge card. So that makes us happy because in the end it praises Jehovah, doesn't it? And people know, even if they don't come and join with us here, at least they know that we were here and there was a convention. Yes, that's an important part of this witness that we're giving. But what about the program itself? Well, there were a few surprises this year, weren't there? Releases at a time when you weren't expecting it. Yeah, you weren't expecting something at the keynote address. And Saturday morning, we caught you off guard again, didn't we? Well, the songbook is something that we'll be looking forward to. Already being able to listen to some of the songs, and you probably realized the last song after the drama was one of our new ones. Truly, these songs have been composed in a way that will help us to express with heartfelt gratitude our feelings with regard to Jehovah. Well, did you enjoy listening to those songs during the program? It certainly makes a difference, doesn't it, to have the vocals along with the music. So you'll be pleased to know that starting September 1, 2009, you may order through your congregations a new recording, Sing to Jehovah, Vocal Renditions, Disc 1. And this will contain 17 of the new songs with chorus and orchestra. And for those of you that are used to going on to the jw.org website, you'll be pleased to know September 1, you'll be able to download all those songs as well from the www.jw.org. At the same time, you'll be able to download the recordings of Sing to Jehovah piano accompaniment. So when you get to the point where you think you can go solo, then you can use those. Well, that was one of the releases. Another release that we had after the keynote address was this one, the DVD, The Wonders of Creation Reveal God's Glory. What a beautiful presentation we see with this. Some of us probably have already had a look at it. If you haven't yet, you've got a pleasure waiting there for you. And we can just imagine many parents using this in their family study with their children, or those of us that are not so young using it in the family study and looking at the various features. It is not designed to attack evolution. It's designed to strengthen our faith and help us to see that we need to take time to smell the roses, as it were, to take time to look at creation around us and realize how Jehovah God has made so many beautiful things for us. Then we received the new brochure, the Bible, What is Its Message? And you probably noticed this, it seems to be a tendency worldwide that even in areas where people have claimed to know the Bible and love the Bible in the past, now we're meeting more and more persons who really haven't got a clue who Cain and Abel were, Adam and Eve, Abraham. You start talking about persons like that and there's a blank look on the face. So this new brochure will be very good because it, in a very brief period of time, helps someone to get an overview of the Scriptures. Have you noticed already? You probably have on page 31 a one-page summary of the whole message in the Bible. And did you notice too the little timelines at the bottom of each page that give us some idea as to when things occurred? Well, if that wasn't enough, then we received the new book, Bearing Thorough Witness About God's Kingdom. I'm sure none of you have read that yet. It's a thick book and there's a lot of information in it. And if there are one or two that have said, yes, I did it, I didn't sleep at all for 2 nights, well, you need to reread it because you wouldn't have got all the information out of it. What a beautiful publication, and how faith strengthening, because here we can see that our organization today, as we're working under Jehovah's direction, is in complete harmony with what is presented in the book of Acts. So I'm sure all of us will enjoy using this, maybe at first in a family worship evening, or at least reading it as soon as we can to get the full impact of it. Well, really our cup runneth over, doesn't it, with regard to all these beautiful things that we've received at the convention. So in this way we could say the effects of the convention continue to flow on, because we're going to enjoy some of these things that we're taking away from the convention. Of course, one of the highlights at each convention is the baptism on Saturday. And we'd like to welcome at this point 20 new brothers and sisters. Yes, there were 11 brothers and 9 sisters, so that's a little unusual, more brothers than sisters. Also, we know that a lot of our brothers and sisters have been working very hard behind the scenes, helping to make this convention a success. In fact, the number of volunteers to make this convention a success was 1,264. Would you like to take the opportunity to thank them all? Well, there were a lot of other interesting things that happened. You probably saw the Portland Daily Sun and the newspaper article there about the convention. And I had to smile when I read about how the reporter came in and asked someone for a watchtower. No one could find a watchtower. Well, it made for a good story. But they wrote up a nice report on the convention. And we're glad to get reports like that at times. It helps the community to see what we're doing, and it brings the convention to the fore in the minds of people. Just a few other experiences that different ones have had. One of the sisters mentioned that they mentioned to the parking garage attendant about this new DVD, and she offered to have a witness take the video to this person so that they could watch it together, and this woman agreed. So you see, it's just a matter of taking the initiative. Another brother reported that he's been calling on an owner of a restaurant, and this owner mentioned how impressed he is with Jehovah's Witnesses because of their mild and kind manner and how they dress modestly. He said, with no piercing, and he gestured to his nose and eyes. Oh, sorry, ears. No, eyes. It says eyes. I guess they do it up here too now. Well, again, those are the little things that people notice. You know, sometimes we take these things for granted, but that can give a wonderful witness to others. Just one thing we'd like to mention too, the management and the staff here of the facility, they've worked very hard as well to make this a success. So would you like to thank them as well for them? You may have noticed yesterday the air conditioning wasn't working. That was to test out how you would stay awake. Most of you passed. But there was a problem, as you would have noticed with that, and even early this morning. I'd just like to read a little report to you. It said, yesterday afternoon, the air conditioning at the Civic Center broke down. The company that services the system was called in during the afternoon to repair it. They were unable to fix the system, and subsequently we were informed yesterday evening that we would be without air conditioning for Sunday. This morning, the Convention Committee approached the Civic Centre management and asked if two of our brothers that are trained in HVAC, one of them a factory trained in the type of equipment we have on site here, could take a look at the system. Late this morning, these two brothers were able to assess the problem and get the system operating again. A small example of the success we can look forward to in the new world. Well, there's so many things happening at the moment, exciting things. Just maybe two things we could mention that have been announced recently at Bethel, and you can see the implications of them. Just a little over a week ago, it was announced that the Bethel family right around the globe would no longer be working on Saturday mornings, but that they would be going out in the preaching work on Saturday mornings. And the main reason for that is to give full support to the preaching work. So you may not be able to serve at Bethel, but you can serve in the preaching work, and you can see the priority that the governing body is giving to the preaching work. And also another announcement was made just this last Wednesday. Brother Samuel Hurd of the governing body made the announcement that we're buying one of the new large presses, and this is going to be installed in the Canada branch. And after that's been installed, then all the printing of magazines will no longer be done at Wallkill, but will be done at Canada. So Canada will supply Canada as well as the United States. And then Wallkill will concentrate on book production, because there's just so much demand on the publications that need to be printed. So there's always something seems to be happening, but it's all being fine-tuned to bring about more praise to Jehovah. Yes, we can see that the faithful slave class is always conscious of the fact that we're living in the last days and the end is near. It's a little bit like, I know we've used various illustrations over the past few days, but it's like you preparing a meal for some guests. And maybe as a sister, you're putting the final touches to the meal, and you're thinking they'll be here soon, they'll be here. And the husband, maybe you're not cooking, but you're worried because you see how uptight your wife is. You know these things, it's only a matter of minutes between a disaster and success. Well, it's only natural, isn't it, that if you hear any sound at all that sounds like a car, you're out the front, you know. They're here. Oh, no, they're not here. That was a passing bus. Mm-hmm. So in a similar way, Jehovah's people have been in expectation, watching for Jehovah's Day. It's true at times, we're on high alert and we might say, oh, it'll be here or there. The main thing is we are in expectation of it. And Jehovah has helped refine our understanding in preparation for the day that it will arrive. Sometimes as a governing body member, brothers with a big smile on their face will say, can you tell us when is it going to come? And the favorite governing body answer is, yes, right on time. But you see, the brothers, although back in the 19th century, they knew 1914 was significant. They knew something was special about it, but they didn't fully understand what was involved with 1914. Then October 2nd, 1914, Brother C.T. Russell came down to the Bethel table and he made an announcement. He said, the Gentile times have ended, their kings have had their day. Well, that was exciting. It would have been great to be there to witness that. But even though everyone was excited, they didn't really know what it meant. They expected to be all going home. They didn't realize just how much work was ahead of them. Then in 1922, we remember the Cedar Point, Ohio Convention, how the work was really stirred up again. And Jehovah had the work focused on preaching the kingdom. Then in 1925, the Watchtower carried an article entitled Birth of the Nation. And that's when we had a full explanation of Revelation 12. Now, we probably have assumed that we always understood Revelation 12 with the woman and the son being born and so on. But it wasn't until 1925 that we truly understood that the kingdom was pictured by the male child and that it had begun to rule in 1914. So then that helped us to understand Revelation chapter 6. And if we turn just briefly there, Revelation chapter 6, remember in verse 2 it says, "And I saw and look a white horse, and the one seated upon it had a bow, and a crown was given him, and he went forth conquering and to complete his conquest." Obviously referring to Jesus Christ after being established in kingdom power in 1914, but also pointing forward to a period of time after 1914 when he would go forth and complete his conquest. But then what else would occur during that period of time? Well, then we look in verses 3 and 4. It talks about peace being taken away from the earth, warfare on a global scale. Then verses 5 and 6, it speaks about famine and shortages. And then 7 and 8, pestilences and sickness and so on. Premature death is referred to there. So it wasn't until 1925 that we started to understand that properly. Then in 1942, in the midst of World War II, again the brothers were on high alert. Is this it? Is Armageddon going to come? Maybe. But then Brother Nathan Knorr gave a very interesting talk at a convention, Peace, Can It Last? There he explained how the League of Nations had symbolically gone into an abyss, as was mentioned in the book of Revelation, that it would re-emerge, and it did, as the United Nations. So then this helped the brothers to see that there would continue to be further opportunity for them to preach the good news. Gilead School was set up. And now all of a sudden, many other countries had an opportunity to hear the good news. Then in 1953, Brother Frederick W. Franz explained the meaning of the prophecy in Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39, Gog of Magog. All of a sudden, we started to understand how God's people would be seen as being secure spiritually, and this would be too much for Satan. He wouldn't be able to control himself. It would be just as if he's drawn by hooks in his jaw to attack God's people. The final attack of Satan in this system of things against God's people. Of course, later again, he will make a final test of God's people at the end of the 1,000 years. So in 1953, all that was clarified. Then in 1963, we had the book Babylon the Great Has Fallen, God's Kingdom Rules. And there we clearly understood the meaning of the woman who was seated on the scarlet-colored wild beast, representing the worldwide empire of false religion. And then we could see that the destruction of false religion would be the first phase of the Great Tribulation, and then eventually that would lead into the second phase of the Great Tribulation, which is Armageddon. Now, for most of us here, we know all this, but it's good for us to remember how gradually Jehovah has had that revealed to us down through the time of the last days. Perhaps we could illustrate it this way. Most of us have waited for friends to arrive by aeroplane. Now, these days when you go to an airport, it's not like before. You could go right out, see the aeroplane land and see the people get off. These days, you're hidden behind all sorts of barriers and security. So basically, you may find yourself looking at a screen. And what do you see? Well, first of all, you see on time. Now, you hope that that's going to remain the way it is. Then, after a long period of time, you see it says landed. Then after a while, what gate the plane is going to come out at, or the passengers are going to come out. And then you may see the carousel where they're going to pick up their luggage. But even then, you still haven't seen your friends. You see, you stand there waiting, so you know, okay, I know the plane was on time. It's a miracle. It's landed, and I know now what gate our friends were coming out of, and I even know where to wait, which carousel. But you're still waiting there. You see, you know they're so close, then people start to come out. Well, now you know it's so close. And all of a sudden, they emerge. Doesn't that nicely describe for us our feelings with regard to 1914 and the time period that we're in now? Jesus arrived on time. We can say the kingdom has landed. And now we know what it's going to do, but we're just waiting for the final part of the last days, for the time when the Great Tribulation will start. Well, this convention has helped to reinforce all these things in our minds, because we've taken the time out of our busy lives to come here and to focus completely on what God's Word, the Bible, says. Now, this has been a special convention. Why do we say that? Well, you see, many of our conventions this year will be international conventions, and my wife and I will have a privilege of attending a number of those. But you see, this convention also was special because we had so many Bethelites here. I don't think I've ever been to a convention when there are so many Bethelites. You must treat them so well. Or maybe you produce a lot of Bethelites up here. I think maybe that's more the case. Well, whatever the case, we're so glad that they were here. But in addition to that, even though this is not an international convention, what a privilege we had to have with us some long-serving missionaries. So we had Sister Betty Griffin serving in Chile, Brad and Christy Koza serving in Paraguay, Troy and Melissa Koza serving in Guyana, and John and Susie Wentworth serving in Korea. Now, all these ones, the Bethelites and the missionaries, as they go back to their assignments, would you like them to take back the love and greetings and wish them the best? And by the way, on behalf of the missionaries, we would like to thank all of you for your special donations you made that have brought the missionaries back home this year. They certainly have looked forward to being able to come back and be with their families. Yes, this convention has spurred us along to keep on going with the all-important work that we have of preaching the good news. For decades, we've been declaring that Armageddon is near. We've used printed messages, electronic messages, word of mouth. We've tried to spread this message right throughout the earth, and that we have done too. But at this point, we would like to use something that we use from time to time. It is a declaration. So I'm going to read this declaration to you. If you haven't heard one before, then what we do is we read it. It's several paragraphs, and then I'll ask you if you agree. Then you say, "I," and hopefully we all say it together. Okay, but first thing is you listen, make sure you can agree with it. So this is the declaration. Today, May 31, 2009, we as Jehovah's Witnesses assembled at this Keep on the Watch convention in Portland, Maine, desire to go on record in making the following declaration in support of God's rulership. In this turbulent period of human history, rulership over Earth's billions is a key issue. Human rulerships face monumental challenges. Mankind is besieged with complex problems. All sectors of human society suffer from widespread crime, economic turmoil, environmental pollution, terrorism, wars, and moral breakdown. Human rulership has failed to bring relief from distressing problems afflicting this ailing world. Why? The Bible alone provides the right answer. At 1 John chapter 5 verse 19 we're told, the whole world is lying in the power of the wicked one. Jesus Christ referred to that wicked one as the ruler of the world. identified in the Bible as Satan the devil, who is misleading the entire inhabited earth. The devil has misled mankind into trusting in imperfect men for salvation. Such trust in mortal humans is futile. Under human rulership, the present system of things, its economic, political, religious, and social structure is in disarray. The prospects for better days ahead appear gloomy. But our outlook is different. We are convinced that, as the Bible clearly shows, it is high time to recognize the superiority of God's rulership. We are determined to help God-fearing people of all nations to trust that God's kingdom will soon administer all affairs of this earth. It is for this rulership that Jesus taught his disciples to pray, "Let your kingdom come. Let your will take place as in heaven, also upon earth." Concerning the role of Jesus Christ and the permanence of God's kingdom rule over this earth, the prophet Daniel declared, "To him there were given rulership and dignity and kingdom, that the peoples, national groups and languages should all serve even him. His rulership is an indefinitely lasting rulership that will not pass away, and his kingdom one that will not be brought to ruin." God's kingdom with Christ as king is an expression of Jehovah's universal sovereignty. Soon, Jehovah will settle for all time the issue raised by the devil's challenge regarding the rightfulness of God's sovereignty and his just, wise, and loving way of ruling his creatures. However, until then, we as Jehovah's Witnesses will continue to render relative subjection to the existing governmental authorities. We live in expectation of deliverance from the present system of things and all of its problems. God's promises of eternal life and endless blessings in a righteous new world will be fulfilled under Jehovah's rulership. Therefore, as part of a worldwide brotherhood, we declare ourselves to be unequivocally in full support of Jehovah God's rulership. All those in favor of this declaration, please say aye. Aye. I think I got the message. That beautifully summarizes our hope for the future, our convictions, and what we know that people in the world don't know. And why we need to help others to know that, because that is the only solution to mankind's problems. Well, we always look to the future with excitement, not only looking towards Armageddon and the removal of all wickedness, but there's always something happening with Jehovah's organization. Next year, the governing body has arranged for similar 3-day conventions to be held, and we look forward to that as well. We're also pleased to tell you that in the Republic of Georgia, the government has officially registered the Christian Organization of Jehovah's Witnesses as of December 24, 2008. Now, those dear brothers in Georgia are very special to my heart, because in 2006 I had the privilege of visiting them. And just briefly, we were supposed to have a big convention in an auditorium, but the government at that time wouldn't allow us to rent it. So we ended up meeting out in an old field, an open field. And the brothers trudged through all sorts of mud to get there. And then when I arrived there, they said, in 2000, this is the spot where the rebel priest came with busloads of his gang and beat up the brothers and smashed apart the platform, made a wooden platform and the wooden little booths that they had for the sound. Well, the next year, you know what the brothers did? You see, they met again in the same location, but this time they said they make the platform out of concrete. And that's what they did. They made it out of concrete. This radical priest came again and beat up the brothers. One sister lost an eye because of being hit by a metal cross. They used guns. But still the brothers kept meeting there. Then the next year after that, they met again in the same location. Of course, by the time I arrived, I was happy to know the priest was in prison. But you see, after all that, those tests on their faith, those dear brothers have got legal registration. And so we can be so happy for them. But in the meantime, of course, conditions are a lot better as far as legal recognition goes here in this country. So we need to use our freedom properly, to keep on searching out for those who really need to know the truth. It reminds me a little bit of a story, a true account of something that occurred in my home country, Australia. Many of you probably are aware of Sydney, and out of Sydney is what we call the bush, the Blue Mountain area. Back in the year 1960, there was a little boy, he was only 4 years of age, and he wandered out into that bush and he was lost, completely lost, for 4 days and 3 nights. And to this day, that was the biggest search that the Australian government and people had put on. Over 5,000 volunteers went out into the bush looking for what we called the little boy lost. Now, as you can imagine, for those 4 days, the whole nation sat on the edge of their seat. Will they find this little boy or won't they? Eventually, a man found the little boy lost. Well, did the 4,999 who didn't find him say, that was a waste of time? No. Everyone that was involved with that search was proud to be part of it, because they knew if they were looking here and the little boy wasn't here, at least that helped the other person who found him where he was. Well, in a similar way, our preaching work is a team effort, isn't it? We're out looking for persons. Maybe you personally haven't found someone who has got baptized, but we're part of a team effort. And we rejoice when some of our brothers and sisters find honest-hearted ones who join us. You see, really what makes Jehovah's Witnesses stand out as different is our continuing on with this preaching work. Isn't that true? You probably have the same thing happen here as in other parts of the world. People will say, we think you people are totally wrong, you're the Antichrist, but we have to admire the work you do. That's a little incongruous, isn't it? But they will say that. They admire us. I had a man who claimed to be a born-again Christian in Australia. One time he said, we can do the work that you people do. I mean, because we have the truth. We can do it, and we are going to do it. Well, I met him a few weeks later, and I said to him, how's your preaching work going? He said, we gave up on that. And I said, why did you give up on it? He said, it was so discouraging. Every door we went to, they asked us, are you Jehovah's Witnesses? You see, that Jehovah's Witnesses have stood out as being different. And the Anointed Remnant, for over 100 years, have spearheaded that work of searching for persons. It reminds me of a true story from the country of Armenia in 1989. It was reported that there was an earthquake. In just 4 minutes, over 30,000 persons were killed with this earthquake. And this is a story of a father who realized his son was at school and that maybe the school had collapsed. So the father, as soon as the earthquake finished, ran down to the school, saw the school completely devastated. Well, this father went to the corner where he realized his son's classroom was, and he started digging. Along came other parents. They saw the school had collapsed. They started wailing and moaning, and they called out to the father and said, look, give up, it's no use. The father paused for a moment. He said, will you help me or not? And he kept on digging. Then along came the fire brigade. The fire brigade said to this father, look, just stop, go home. There could be a fire, so you don't want to endanger yourself. Leave it to us. The father turned and he said, will you help me or not? And kept digging. Then along came the police, and the police said, look, we've arrived now. Just leave it to us. You can go home now. The father paused for a minute. He said, look, are you going to help me or not? He kept digging. That father kept digging for 8 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, 36 hours. At the end of 38 hours, he pulled across a large boulder and heard the voice of his son. He called out, Amand, and his son replied, yes, there were 7 children that were there that he saved. Well, in a similar way, brothers and sisters, the anointed remnant has kept on digging and searching. They've done this for decade in, decade out. And they continue to say to you, will you help us or not? What's your answer? Yes. Yes, we're all part of the same team, working hard to find persons before the end arrives. And we're not the only ones in expectation of this day. If you turn with me to the last scripture we've got, Isaiah chapter 30. Now, normally in Australian English we say Isaiah 30. But I'll try to be American and say Isaiah 30. So as long as we got the same scripture. And verse 18. It says, and therefore Jehovah will keep in expectation. You see, Jehovah is in expectation of showing you favor. Therefore he will rise up to show you mercy. For Jehovah is a God of judgment. Happy are all those keeping an expectation of him. We're not the only ones who want the end to come. Jehovah wants it to come as well. But maybe some of you have continued in the preaching work for decades. You know, maybe 40, 50 years ago you said, but they said it was around the corner. It was close. Well, it still is. You see, even though you've been serving for decades, how many more persons have had the opportunity? Of course, we know we're very, very close now. But maybe just to finish off with one final illustration. Just imagine this. It's the Super Bowl. The New York Giants are playing the New England Patriots. The game is nearly finished. The score is exactly equal. All of a sudden, one of the Patriots grabs the ball. He runs towards the touchdown. Behind him are 2 Giants chasing him. As he's nearing the touchline, all of a sudden he stops, puts the ball down and says, how many minutes left? What would you say? Run! Make the touchdown! Don't worry about the time. Well, we say the same to you, brothers. The work we've been given is preach the good news. Jehovah's the timekeeper. Stop worrying about the time. Just keep doing the preaching work. Yes, keep in expectation. Jehovah will be with you.